Wow, that was a great conversation, Shasta. What do you think?
I really enjoyed it. I've read a lot about urban air mobility. It seems like it's always in the news, and it was great to just learn more about regional air mobility, the benefits of how it's going to serve the smaller communities. And, you know, I was talking to my husband about this, who is an airline pilot, and he had some mixed feelings about it. But then I told him, when you think of the future, like 50 years from now, I don't foresee pilots being in the flight deck. And so this is just another step in that direction. And it might be hard for us to wrap our heads around this or just accept it, but this is the future. And so I'm kind of embracing it. And I'm really hoping that with this will come more job opportunities and just more opportunities for the industry to grow.
Yeah, and I was impressed to hear him talk about Superpilot, which is Xwing's AI and machine learning technologies that they're using to drive this fully autonomous gate-to-gate flight technology. So with the project designation that they submitted to the FAA, Xwing is now on a path to regulatory approval. The other thing I was impressed with was how the company's taken a crawl, walk, run approach. And typically you see companies get out and they want to conquer the world, but to hear them say that they are trying to be considerate of the industry as it is today and what people might be willing to adopt as they try to bring the technology to market was something I valued. And I think we need that.
You know what I think about, Michael? I think a lot about, having flown around the world, like you can tell a computer to fly from point A to point B. And, this is kind of a dramatic scenario, but there were so many moments where, the weather was okay. But like, I guess it's just the pilot's intuition that I relied on as I went around the world to make decisions. And, in hindsight, I feel like they were the right decisions to make. And so I'm just wondering, like, how do you account for that? How do you account for just the skill and the knowledge that the pilot comes with in situations that are not normal? And how will this super computer be able to, or super pilot be able to manage that?
Yeah, so I've had a couple interviews with the Xwing team during my time at Flight Magazine, and one thing they pointed out was the technology for autonomous aviation already exists. They can fly from point A to point B almost easily. It's an air traffic control system that needs to be adjusted for it. And it made me think about, so I live next to one of those Amazon Fresh stores where you walk in and they have the overhead cameras and you could walk in and pick your stuff up and go. But every time I go in, without fail, people going in, they are so, it's a new paradigm to them that they're like, can I actually just scan to go in? And as they're coming out of the store, there's also this inhibition about, did it really charge my account? There was this experience I had yesterday at the store where a lady was coming out and she was just so bewildered. She was asking the store attendant, what if I were to put it back? And I realized this is what this is, where the technology is like a solved problem. We can fly point A to point B without pilots. It's the ecosystem that also needs to evolve along with it. And so Xwing, they have taken steps to do that. They were in a program last year where large unmanned aerial systems were sort of put into these extreme conditions to try to figure out how they would handle those things, how the air traffic control system would handle those scenarios, because the typical point A to point B, they have down pat. And then the rest of it is the airport environment, leaving the gate or starting off with just loading cargo, leaving the gate and then coming back in, landing, taxiing. These are where things tend to go wrong typically for aviation. So
yeah,
I think it's an incredible opportunity for other solutions to come along as well.
I agree. And I think their strategy on the crawl, walk, run is smart because it's going to take some time for the general public to get behind this, to see it develop, and for them to feel confident to get on a plane that that doesn't have any pilots up front. So it's interesting to see how this all unfolds. So another thing to add, Michael, is that more than 30 aviation leaders gathered a couple weeks ago in San Francisco for a summit that was specifically for regional air mobility. McKinsey and Company, the organizers, said that the Regional Air Mobility Summit is an event for senior leaders across several sectors like OEMs, technology providers, operators, infrastructure players, and others in the regional ecosystem. The summit is for them to connect, exchange thoughts, deepen relationships, and further the industry. One of the key takeaways from the summit was that after investing millions of dollars into the research and development on airframes, investors and companies are now turning their attention to the operational challenges they face as they look to move passengers and cargo. One of the leaders who attended the event was Mark Piet, the founder and CEO at Xwing.
I'm glad you brought that up, Shasta, because just recently, the House Aviation Subcommittee hosted industry leaders to talk about just workforce challenges ahead of the FAA reauthorization bill. And one of the leaders present was the president and the CEO of the Regional Airline Association. And in her testimony, she said the impact of the pilot shortage are real. Currently, more than 500 regional aircraft are parked, and those aircraft that remain in service are underutilized. She also said that the impact has been felt by 308 airports and almost 72% of all US airports. So Presently, there's just regional airports in small cities are under duress from lack of service, which means that people who live in those areas, as Kevin shared, they have to drive really far to get reliable service. And there's a direct economic impact on those communities as well. So the need for solutions like what Xwing is trying to bring to market is becoming clearer and clearer each day.
In addition to this, just as a passenger, a lot of aviation events happen in more regional areas. When you look at Sun and Fun in Lakeland, Florida, EAA AirVenture out in Oshkosh, it's exhausting. It's a day of travel to fly into the major cities, rent a car, drive all the way out. So really exciting stuff with regional air mobility. I'm excited to just have more options than what the airlines are offering.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how Xwing's certification process goes. Even though they've done the work, now things are sort of in the FAA's hand, and the FAA will need engineers on hand to help hurry this process along. So let's stay tuned and see how things shake out for Xwing.